Pension begins, we give like a surcharge of 25%.
Так, товарищи, вот теперь и на моих часах то.
Dear all, it is now 20 past 10, according to my watch too, so please let's resume our work. Well, do let us, every group has only 5 minutes to present. No more than 5 minutes. Let's keep the time, and after each presentation we shall just ask a couple of questions, no more than a couple of 3 questions, so that everybody should implement their interests. Group number 1, I say that they will be presenting first. Then comrades in the far left corner, please turn towards us. Okay, could we have silence in the room? Group 1, can you begin? Please use the microphone. Our colleagues and I, we chose this jails and doing time. Well, first we will analyze the state system of the penitentiary and what are the pros of the system. Clear-cut system of control, a secure protection of society from the criminals, uniform conditions, social control, direct interaction with other state organs. They are in networks spread across the country, ready-made structure, centralized governance, job creation for federal penitentiary service. And the inmates are now becoming served by the clergy. What are cons? Excess jobs, that's high cost, poor living conditions, poor medical service. There is no alternative. You cannot choose a prison. A low level of infrastructure development. The rights are not observed and freedoms. There are no rehab system, overcrowded conditions, corruptions, poor communications between the inmates and the servicemen, forced labor, absence of profit, they are running into losses, and inflexibility of the system, rigidity. And now we suggest our own it's called jailbreak, private system, as you stay in prison beyond prison walls. Well, first, what are the cons? High costs to build and maintain and keep this facility. You have to exploit the inmates, you violate their rights. It could be efficient only if the state supports us with benefits. Absence of qualified labor because inmates are not qualified. Therefore, we must bear costs to train them, costs and expenses to provide social services and medical care to inmates. Quite bulky operators of control. Lack of investors. Pros: socialization, adaptation by the time they leave the jail, including their work with psychologists. In case they leave sooner, they can remain there working. Self-sufficiency, creating production which can provide for good quality product that sells, which ensures higher wages. So in this jail, they observe their rights and freedoms. They suggest better conditions of their stay, and we can ensure clusters of production depending on their skills and qualifications. As we understand pros and cons, we decided that private jails would be better and the investments would return. It makes sense to invest. Bravo for being brief and for being very clear-cut in your presentation. What are the questions from the audience? Daria Chernashova, well, you chose private jail, and that you pointed out that your project is not quite economically profitable. And the last phrase was you would choose profitable investment. How can you have profitable investment if you cannot return the investment? Do you really think that this project could be carried out? Credit manager, jailbreak, Konstantin Ostrovsky from Kaliningrad. We were saying that at regional stages, like in any other project, we are searching for investors and investment, sure. The product will return investment. Don't stay assured. And what I wanted to say is that this will be, in light of that, as analysts evaluate, today we are in 2015, 2020, we shall have big demand in America and the EU for high-skilled engineers because technologically are developing rapidly, and this need will surely be seen. Therefore, following such crisis, we decided we would leave in place a possibility, for example, in this country, to train specialists like this and move production in our territory. Anyways, given these trend, it will be a good project that will return investment and will return profit. Given the trend that we see high number of inmates and a few cases when people are acquitted in court, we shall have enough labor, trust me. I wanted to add, and question was raised that we shall have very good social function because we don't have a special service to debt and rehab. Guys, let's respect us and our project and not make noise. We will also treat your project and we will listen quietly. This is adaptation. But if he is not keen to work on just after he does service, does time, there will be two blocks in this jail, one for inmates and others who have done their time, but for other reasons, say psychological reasons, they are afraid to go out and they're keen to stay. He can adapt in the territory of the Russian Federation like a highly qualified specialist who is in great demand. It means that the state will get good profit in terms of taxpayers will not have to pay for this jail. It will be self-sufficient. It will have high-tech products. Say Samsung might be interested in localizing production with us. My colleague also wants to add on. Thank you very much. Let's remember that we need to respect time limit. Oля Zabalueva. I have a question. You have at least two lawyers. Will this jail serve its main purpose, that is punishment? Punishment for the crimes committed. Well, they are restricted in terms of freedom. They're not staying at home. They're still staying in a jail. And that they remain human dignity and their rights and freedoms are respected in human normal conditions. Well, the question is to continue the previous question. And what about your jail? Is it a project that can be located in one place, or is it something that can be replicated? Secondly, what do you do about those who want to get into your jail? What do you do? How do you stomach them? Well, this is, again, second block, where you could get using this infrastructure. Yes, there will be demand and we will see great investment. Certainly it's a network project which can be replicated and later this model can be used elsewhere. Yes, like a franchise. Yes, I forgot the word. Sorry, franchise. Pskov, People's Republic, potential sort of dweller. Well, they actually will sentence you for 3 years for separatism. Don't you say that here? That's why you will be sent to jail. Yes, exactly. Could the participants of your group, did you watch the American film Live Till You Die? I'm sorry, the interpreter does not know. With introduced innovation, inmates were divided in pairs and each had a collar, and if somebody wanted to run away or leave beyond the red line, then this collar would burst. What innovations would you use in your... And another question, access to mobile, to internet, mobile phones. Do you think you will allow this to, say, people's governor of Pskov? Can he talk to his champions? For example, there's practice in Ukraine shown the governor of Donetsk Republic is in jail for 2 months, but his page in Contact works. Well, we got your point. Well, first of all, our innovation was about motivating them, and there's a plus is that they can get higher salary. But intercontinuation is not very much to the topic. We are not just a jail that we wanted to make, and we wanted to show all the models. It's like, sorry, just something wrong with the mic. Sorry. Yes, and the last question to this group who presented their project, please. Yes, this is my question, please. This is for profit or commercial jail. So first of all, its organizers want to derive some profit, right? Could it be that, for example, if the profit, if it doesn't balance, then 2 or 3 inmates will simply disappear, and maybe you will sell them for organs, I don't know, to return a quick back. Well, yes, let me finish my thought, please. And who will oversee this jail where you have a commercial director? Well, all our staffing schedule, we will not show it to you, but behind the curtains, yes, we have this system of control put in place. Since we observe freedoms and rights, cases like this about organs should not happen. But in terms of business, we were saying that we shall have clusters that we will develop. We will look at the what is in great demand in this region, so it is efficient. And this group was set up, this project was set up a project that everybody is keen to get to. Let's thank them. Group number 2, who were they? This was us. Yes, what we want to suggest to your attention, very, very cool project about a very cool private army. We thought that it would be really great to set up a for-profit army. This army should work along the following lines. First, orders by these companies given by the state. The state still has the head, this is the state that determines the criteria for the orders it places for a company that is performing them. All the others, like supply, enrollment, training, and keeping them in barracks where they stay, chief of staff, and we will delegate it to private military companies. We also highlighted some positive and negative aspects of this project, and we wish to tell you about this. Our colleagues will tell you about it. Please. Can I share with you the pluses, the pros? One of the pros, we'll see competition between private military companies for obtaining government money or orders from the government, procurement. Secondly, high efficacy of spending the money and better quality of military services. 3, lower corruption risks. 4, additional revenue for providing services to other states, military services. And 5th, optimization Optimization of the state. It means debureaucratization. As we told during one of the sessions, delegation of the power of the state to private military companies. So I will be an evil subcommissioned officer. Well, it's clear that nuclear button, we give it just to a private company, we delegate it to them. Those who saw a design of a small house, this is a thick book that is drafted by many people in order to provide military assignment to a detachment, to an army, and then accept the results of their work. We'll have to keep not only joint staff, we will also have to pay for another half an army that will stay with the state. Moreover, if I keep the army as a state, I certainly invest some resources, but I give it away to private money. I spend the same resources, but I might also ensure profit to the businessman. Again, the taxpayers again pay higher amounts of money. And finally, well, corruption in what procurement of orders. This is something we see in every country, but also we will also give away huge sums of. And each entrepreneur wants to cut costs. Now we have, instead of butter, margarine. Can you imagine when we have a private army, when it would begin to save? Next con, it will start saving, amongst other things, on people. So do not pay enough to people, try to minimize its expenses on, say, a retirement, on insurance, you name it. A huge number of people who ensure the safety and security of the country will remain most unprotected. Thank you. The evil subcommissioned officer is over. Yes, I'm ready to take questions, but non-commissioned officer is over with his. Well, what do we choose? Out of the childish desire to play with a nuclear button, we would probably opt for a private army. Sorry, something is being said off the mic. Thank you. They're all people who are keen to ask questions. Okay. Do let us thank our... We think that conscription will be over. We think that private companies will be responsible for enlisting soldiers, and based upon market mechanisms, they will decide how much to pay to these officers. And some people who are not keen to do national service, they may be taxed. Some military or anti-military, I don't know which name to use, tax, which will help the state finance the army. At that, if you take part in a private army, and as we thought it will be a contract army, don't you think that your army may go against you? Good question. Well, we're guided by the fact that it's very much the same people who serve in the army, not today, although it's a for-profit army. Nowadays, our army doesn't occur to it to go against it, although they're paid money. The interpreters think if the real army really knew about their plans, they will surely not only go against them, but destroy them very happily. So.
And my question, I have two questions. One, you're saying you'll have a private army, and a private army, any army has to have an espionage, a spy division. So you will spy on the state too. Obviously, I mean, you're a for-profit body that will definitely spy for profit. One. Two, this is a private army for conflict resolution. So don't you think the army will create a conflict in regions and then get on with profit making?
Спасибо.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. I'll answer in Russian because my English, it will be better for everybody. Well, first of all, as far as I understand your first question about spying, right? About intelligence. As practice shows, private military companies are very keen in taking part in espionage stories. There were quite a few. And I suppose our private military companies will have great chances to also perform excellently in this area too, as to creating wars wherever and creating military conflicts too, as what you put it, to make profit out of it. We have provided for these mechanisms. For this reason, we just like the objective for military action and that training and just setting them assignments and military goals that they have to achieve. This is what the state, the only thing that can set these objectives before private military companies. If private military companies go for military operations, they only do it at their own risk, and the state will, like it has nothing to do about it. Thank you, thank you. Now, you, please. It sounds queer.
I can't understand if the state, this financing comes from the state, right? Because the tax is paid by the state, right? And then the state contract that you're trying to conclude with the state. And for the services, military services that you provide to the state, then you contradict yourself, because the army is kind of commercial, but it serves the state. So because it's still mixed, it's not uncertain. It's not certain. You didn't get it. Let me explain again. First, the state, it's true, pays money to private military companies, but for the tasks that it sets itself. But if military companies are involved in other contracts, no one forbids it. But the state is not going to pay for it. So there may be, for example, they can sign contracts to provide military services to another state. But it's outside, so that's why they get the money for themselves, right? Yeah, but the state pays the army to achieve certain military objectives. So listen to me. Yeah. Okay, another question. Yes, monopoly to use military force is a characteristic of a state. And your private army, for example, can be destroyed, for example. What happens? Then Karl Marx proved that capital will go to any crime if there is a 10% profit. So, and you want to give the capital private army, it's crazy, because then they will throw this army for the most ignominious purposes and will get money and profits from it. Let me explain. So the state is ready for any crime as well to increase its wealth. Okay, but then the monopoly of the state is still there, because the state gives orders and pays money to its army. Yes, to carry out certain military tasks that the state wants the army to do, perform, right? Okay. The answer is that same way as helping the retired, so the state orders the service, but it does need a provider, because it's two different things. Another question. You didn't tell me the business model. You asked a question, now another question now. We are a team. Very short question. how are you going to do competition between your private armies? Is there going to be any competition? Those are not private armies, but those are private military companies. But there's will one army. But the private companies will be getting different orders. For example, to set up, to provide certain military services in the area of this kind of military operations. So there are surface operations or naval operations, aval operations. You can always break it down into smaller operations. But it's the companies that will be controlling the armies. Okay. Then I want to get this one thing clear. The army is to protect not only the boundaries but the sovereignty of the state. And if you have a state and not just a gas station with a flag, right? Yeah. If it's a real state, then how the army that one time it just says it belongs to this state and then belongs to another state, how can it possibly maintain the sovereignty of its customer, of its client? It's impossible because it changes sides all the time. It changes sides all the time. It's not loyal. How can it trust it? Okay, so in the army, so we have the citizens of the state. So they're working on the basis of the contract. And the company, and you can always provide it in certain laws, that any company that provides military services goes under jurisdiction of a certain state. That the fact that they carry out other just military contracts on the side, that's their additional business, and it does not damage the state. Just the other way around. And so thus they circumstantially expand the zone of interest of the state. Okay, wonderful project. Great project. Okay, so the counterintelligence learned that there is a project of the state army. Quiet, please. Can I have a little quiet? Ladies and gentlemen, friends, what we said before means nothing. But the modern world sets many challenges to the modern world, and we're current concerning some of them, and the modern state should provide efficient answer to those challenges. Naturally, if we analyze the situation, so we can isolate certain points, and from the viewpoint of the project named Private Army. And I wanted to give you this, my idea, very briefly. So size professionalism, small size mobility, corporate spirit, which is maybe put in doubt, certain motivation, which can be put in doubt as well. Then naturally, such projects, there are many weaknesses of this project. One of the moral, ethical weaknesses, because a guy would not want to die for money, because you cannot just put the shroud has no pockets. You cannot possibly take money with you to heaven. That is why no one would want to die for money. And so the quality of this army is questionable. Then this army can be bought over So the highest bidder will take this goddamn army. Okay. And then they can just they may choose not to honor the terms of the contract, and they can just tell the state to go and screw itself. That's it. That's not any army that works on the contract, which is not controlled by the special agencies that serve the interests of the state. So then that state is doomed to destruction. So then there are some things that have been tested for many years. The state army. The state army has weaknesses. First, not all want to serve. Yeah, that's true. Sometimes some people don't want to serve in the army. Then we can say corruption of the top brass. That corruption of the top brass, because sometimes the army sinks into very complicated interrelationship. Then the quality of the army is low. Lack of professionalism, a lack phasing in the army, a lack of equipment, poor maintenance. Then people are not happy, a militarized conscience of the people. And there are some other things that may be detrimental to the morale of the army. But still, the state army outweighs all the weaknesses that I have just listed. Okay. 100% mobilization. So I can draft the entire population immediately, right away. Everyone knows how to shoot a Kalashnikov rifle. Then the army forms morale. The army forms the knowledge that everyone can support, help, and defend the state. And at the same time, in the military, in the war times, the interests of the state army and the state coincide. But in the wartime, so the interests of the state and the private army sometimes contravene. They oppose, and that is why a bigger level of control is very important for the state over the army during the times of the troubles, during the war times. That is why the state army is much more reliable, loyal, faithful, and can be relied upon. Questions? He said correct that the interests of the state army and the interests of the state coincide. And we've been discussing for several days that the interests of the state and the interests of the society do not always coincide. Does the nation need the army that do not coincide with the interests of the nation? The army and the society may not coincide, but if the state army exists, then more often than not, the interests of the state and the people will coincide. But in case of the private army, so then the interests of the state and the army and the people will diverge more often. So we need the state army. If I remember in history, so the majority of coup d'etats were perpetrated by the state army. Could they give me a couple of examples where the coup would be organized by a private army? It's the state army that toppled the states, and not the private army. Yeah, the Comoro Islands in 1980, 1979, when the military coup was organized by a private army. Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that's a good example. Okay, and so that in the ancient world, in ancient Greece, That happened all the time. Yes, the African states is another very salient example. So when the state depends on the army that it tried to hire, and then the army kills the state. Yeah, it happens all the time in Africa. Yes, we can see that. Yeah. You were saying that everyone serves children, women, adults, old people. Everyone serves in your army. Is that okay that everyone serves in your army? I didn't get it. What he said, I didn't get it. Okay, next question. Last question. I can't stop like a competing company. I want to oppose your opinion. I want to question your opinion. You're not my competitor. You're just nothing. Yeah. But the essence of my question is that your army will be involved in building dachas for your generals, but our army is gonna fight. So which army is needed by the state more? So the army that builds houses for the generals, or the army that's gonna fight? So look at the army of Israel, the Israel army. Does it build houses for generals? No, it doesn't. Now, if the army in peaceful times builds roads, it's okay. It's wonderful. It's great if they build roads. Thank you. Yeah, this is the content and the essence incarnate put together. Great thinking. Okay, before we move over to the next group, so one comment related to people's militia. I'm sorry to intervene. Couple of words about the state persons. So we went to this pond and we like to stay there and just don't go to the pond. And so if anyone just want to finish discussing to avoid trouble, don't go to the pond. Yeah, because there are some people from special agencies who may not like us. Yeah. Please don't go to the pond. Right. So the Crimea is ours there. Yeah, okay. So they celebrate the Day of Russia. Just don't go there. Okay. So we have two more teams that have not yet spoken. Three. Good evening. The last several days we spoke about elections. That is why we decided to think about something else. That some functions of the elections could be taken by and we decided to take it one step further and to think that some functions to ensure good elections can be taken by private companies or NGOs. We isolated the following functions that can be done within the framework of the elections campaign and see what strengths and weaknesses can be applied if the state guarantees business NGOs what they can do. What are those functions? First, then registration of candidates, due diligence, then working with the database of the electorate, number, then the media support, And so giving time on air, on TV, channels, broadcasting, all there. And then informing the electorate about place and time of the elections. Then the next point is technical and HR and technical. What we need to do is to select the elections points, put up the flags, put the boxes where the bulletins are put, and then we need just to train the people who are going to work on those polling points. And there is another, is just to set up the date of the elections. And the last is to count the votes. And so my colleagues will tell the strengths and the weaknesses of those functions. And NGOs. If we help the state to guarantee and guarantee the professional level of the commissions and all the participants, so be working just on full time or regularly. У него не включен микрофон. Попросил включить микрофон. Не слышно ничего. But all this, if we observe the law, and then it will be cheaper to do it if you compare it with the commercial institution. Нет, не включен, не включен. Ничего не слышу. And then they designate a certain person who will be so monitoring this process, and so people just would want to falsify, so we can filtrate the candidates at the moment of registration, and organize this process can be done within the framework of not only the elections process, but so we can organize the whole procedure by way of this pre-electoral propaganda before the elections could be biased, and the state should be denied the participation.
Thank you, colleagues. Let's switch to NGOs and non-NGOs. Presumably they are not state-run. And here comes business organizations. First of all, the minuses that it's costly, and commercial organization, profit organization, they work for profit. And minus also that individuals are not involved, since if a business organizes something, people do not volunteer to work for such organizations, and that's only those who are paid for that will participate in the campaign. It's also a minus that if it's a bidding system from the standpoint of the state, it's not good that contractor might be afraid of losing those contracts. But there are also some pluses. First, reputation. Suppose there is Ernst & Young, KPMG, or Pricewaterhouse who first validate candidates, and then they check if there are some schemes or rigging, and then they do counting. You cannot expect that they would cheat, because companies with 10 billion contracts will not cheat. They are not corrupted. They can provide high quality of the process and competition, because various subcontractors can run for various functions. Media capabilities are much higher, because we believe that we need some communication platforms for various candidates, and sometimes state-run television is involved, but traffic is low, while commercial channels have much more traffic. If 100 hours of air is paid for, and it will be much more efficient. Next comes NGOs. There are some advantages, such as trust. Not everywhere, not in all the countries. Accountability. Citizens can make them accountable, and the state too. And volunteers may work for NGOs. Besides, they can train electoral commission members, and that's good for NGOs. Minuses: low organizational leverage, no strong discipline, and some procedures can be failed. Bias: some NGOs can be biased, or at least some members can be biased, and their dependency on state and business donors. That's about risks. But we can see that risks are less than if elections are run solely by the state, which is often interested in some kind of rigging. Thank you. Try to be very brief, just 1 minute. I remember that we have both state, business and NGOs, and we believe that state can do regulatory function, and state can assume legislative functions as well, and state will be a guarantor. Execution will be done by NGOs and business. That's our final. Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's true that you went in depth of the subject. Thank you. Questions? Who will be an investor, and how you will ensure that there is return on investments? Well, you know, our point is that the technical support is rendered by business. State plays the role of an investor, so it's the state that pays. But again, that's will cost less, as if the state would be the sole organizer and executor. And the state is an instrument that is financed by the people, by taxpayers. So that's true that the state distributes the funds. There is the Canadian scheme, and in their case, they finance some state-run media, and some determined, dedicated part of the budget is allocated for that, but the state does not regulate the content. Same thing here. The state determines the size of the budget, and they also pass the law. But as for the execution and implementation, it's business and NGOs. Colleagues, I like your project. It's quite valid. Is my understanding correct that state bodies responsible for elections will fully be abolished? And were you saying about the regulatory function of the state? Will there be some individual bodies that would regulate the activities of the private and NGOs companies? I think the main objective that the state faces with is to establish the independent judiciary, and it can assume the regulatory function, while legislative activities will be formed by the legislature. Okay, next question. Is my understanding correct that in various phases of electoral process, media functions can be performed, some private organization, validation of candidates can be done by still another organization? For instance, there is a bidding and a tender, and various companies are bidding, Some of them are winners, they are paid for their job, and the company that is the winner in bidding and responsible for counting votes say that we failed to deliver those experts that would do counting. You can penalize us, but that would mean that elections are disrupted. So how would you fix that? We agree that's a risk. That's risk, really, and it's a big risk. And therefore, subcontractors in counting votes could be the very reliable companies, and penalties and fines ought to be so much that if a company fails, it will be just bankrupt. And I'm even think that it could be an international company, multinational company. But anyway, elections are disrupted, and money has been spent, and to no avail. Yes, in this case, elections are postponed, and there are fines and penalties. If it is a private company, well, that's true. We are saying that only companies with well-established reputation can do so, and the company that have some provisions, and if they fail, they will pay the fine that will cover the expenses of the rerun. Okay, I would allow two last questions. Don't you think that there could be a situation that the company would pick the most corrupted company in order to ensure their rents? That's a question. That's quite a question. But the tenders are to be well organized, and it's also the responsibility of business. And if somebody fails, if some company fails, and if the company is corrupted, then it will lose all its reputation, and it will lose all its contracts, not only at this election, but for the entire future activities. And judiciary courts, independent judiciary will see to it that it doesn't happen. If my understanding of the group is correct, you mean that if the system is such, like it happened with the PR campaign under Tina Kandelaki, whose company became the biggest in the country, then you cannot help to have fair elections. But if the situation is different, then you can try. Last question. Mr. Grozovsky, I don't have a question, I have a proposal. Since we all want to see the opening of the World Cup, please reduce the number of questions and reduce the time for answers. Thank you very much to the election group. We have two more groups. And here comes the group that sells bodies organs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We represent the private-public partnership of Kruger House that sells body organs. Our logo reads Kruger House, always fresh leather. The pluses of private control: high capacity, responsiveness, investments in the creation of new technologies and innovations, no red tape and bureaucracy over bureaucracy. Minuses: higher death rate, unverified data bank, high prices, monopoly, social injustice. State control. It's control over the performance, a legislative base for regulation, state control over the export of organs, control and fixing of prices, supervision of the queue and quality of the material. Minuses: corruption, over bureaucracy, death rate rise, monopoly, budget burden because of the disability of disabled people. And the conclusion is that it's only in PPP, public-private partnership, that we can achieve those ends most efficiently. And to arrive at our conclusions, we used the advice of our expert, our foreign supplier. And we are prepared to cooperate with all the listed organizations, penitentiary system, armed forces. All those who don't agree to come to the elections, please donate your organs. And that's our slogan. Sell a liver for just half a day.
That you have to have checks and balances from the state to run a good business, right? You have to let the market go, but the state has to keep a check without interfering into the business. As in, the business aspect has to be totally free, but state has to monitor. The job, as in the job of the state, is welfare, and the job of business is profit making. So let the state do welfare and let the business make profit.
Questions? We have the professional armed forces, and we are really ready to cooperate with you. But how would you supervise? Say somebody asks for a liver, and how one can make sure that you don't offer monkeys or someone else's liver? We have PricewaterhouseCoopers as an auditor, so they will check everything to make sure that the liver that is offered to you is human liver, not the one that belongs to a monkey. Okay, so in this case, army units will come to your factory, they'll come to your office and shut it down. More questions? Anna Martinova from Sochi. Well, in your presentation, you kept on mentioning the death rate rise. Do you think that it will happen because of operations of poor quality and death of the patient? Or it will be the massacre, the slaughter of people for the sake of organs? Let our foreign supplier take that question.
Может быть, смертность вырастет за счет лягушек?
Probably the death rate will rise because of the mortality of frogs.
See, there'll be, as I said, it's going to be a checks and balances system, right? So if, like, for example, a liver is never donated as a whole. You have to donate it in part. So there's no question of death.
Спасибо.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to discourage you from inviting PricewaterhouseCoopers and PricewaterhouseCoopers. And otherwise, was it just a joke? Were you just joking in your presentation? And what's the difference? It's like pizza selling, you know. You fry it, you cut it into pieces and deliver. The scheme is the same. Products are different, but business is business. We're just making money. Okay, thank you. Last question. Didn't you forget that you are depriving us from television? It's not the question on the subject. I would like to warn you straight that I consumed a lot of Coca-Cola. My question is as follows. We are on the eve of the great breakthrough in artificial organs making. Do you think under this situation your company will have a bright future? Or your success will be a short term only? It seems to me that we all got the format, but not the content. The format is a joke, but the project had quite a serious content, like our Indian colleague put it. It's the public-private partnership. So I would like you to see serious ideas behind our idea, our suggestion. Okay, so thank you very much. Yes, format interfered, I think, and I understand that you were serious. You were quite serious. Here comes our last group. It's a serious presentation of the project. It's no, there's no kidding. In some things we are all alike, since we are all striving for self-development, self-improvement, and that's the reason we attended the seminar of the Moscow School for Civic Enlightenment. I can only regret that I didn't come here earlier and didn't start my self-development earlier. So our presentation is dedicated to a very important subject. That's the commercial or profit-based preschool education. Very briefly, I will identify pluses and minuses. We will start with the option when preschool education is dealt only by the state. This program is referred to as standardized KID. Pluses: universal accessibility, free of charge, oversight on the part of the state, single requirements and standards, financing from the budget, equal opportunities for parents and kids to get that service. That's the adherence to the best hygienic and sanitary norms, pedagogical support for kids, infrastructural accessibility of the preschool establishments. And it's also the research-based standards. It's an ability to apply on the web, accessible and rate-based services, and state procurement, state orders too. Minuses: low flexibility, and that's the only global minus that I can think of. Market option, we called it Lucky Kid, and we actually picked that option for this team. First advantage, first plus, high quality of service. It's achieved through a low number of kids in groups, through flexibility of curriculum, a careful selection of personnel, and ability to provide various majors for kids, support of parents on every issue, and through individual approaches to teaching, flexible schedule of establishments, close contacts between the administration and parents as customers, and additional quality of standards. There is a number of more pluses. Mandatory adherence to the minimal standards determined by law, stipulated by law, flexibility in payments, and ability to establish an efficient business model. In one word, it reads client-oriented approach. But there is a very big minus, which is high costs. Thank you. Questions? Is there anybody who has not said a word? I'm Anton Timchenko from the Moscow region. You said that it leads to an efficient business model. Am I right that your example is just an abstract idea which is not based on a specific business model? Thank you very much, because we did establish a business model and you gave us an opportunity to present it to you. The model includes a number of elements. First, it's the consumer segment, it's the customer relations, it's the hints and that we are going to apply, various methods of payment. I'm not going to list them all, but overall they are 18. There are some more elements I can think of, or otherwise I will not bore you any longer. You can do it privately, okay. If anybody are interested, we can sell you that model. I'm Ivan Vlasov, I'm the father of 2 kids. You know, this morning we were told that 40% of the population in Russia receive same size of revenues as they got in the Soviet Union. If all our kindergartens are private and business is always trying to get as much profit as they can, don't you think that only some kids will go to very nice kindergartens while others will stay in the streets? I'm Olga Fadeyeva. I'm the mother of 4 kids. I would like to take a question. And because those private kindergartens are going to merge, queues that we have for state-run kindergartens will be reduced. And the market is quite flexible. You understand about economics, I think, even more than I do. Yes, we understand more. So, because I don't think that there will be a great number of private kindergartens, then the queues will be shorter, and it will be beneficial for the state-run kindergartens, free kindergartens too. Because of the high cost of your service, can you name that competitive advantage as compared with private babysitters or nurses? Think if a person is rich, is wealthy, then it's much better to hire a nurse and a babysitter so they will keep an eye on the child 24 hours a day. Actually, it's the flexibility and diversity of programs and socialization of kids that's the competitive advantage. When the kids deal only with a single adult, it's deprivation. It's not development. 2 last questions. And I would like to add that we have multiple pieces of evidence with a very rough treatment of kids on the part of babysitters and nurses. In our case, it's impossible. It's rolled out. I have a comment, because the system you proposed, it's not entirely private, it's a public-private partnership. Because private kindergartens will help to reduce queues to state kindergartens. The existence of public kindergartens is a transitional period, is an interim period, so that our society would gradually move to the very bright era. The last question for today, who's going to ask it? Well, colleagues, I would like to ask about economics. What size of investment are you going to make in the first phase of your project, and what will be the payback period? plans are to make an investment of 1 million rubles, and the payback period will be 4 months. 1 million will be required to launch the project and try the model, because we have to pick the best working hypothesis, and then we will launch it as a scale project. But to begin with, it's just 1 million. Thank you very much.
Так, собственно, подведение итогов займет буквально 1 минуту.
Well, my summary will take about 1 minute. I would like to thank all the groups. There is no contest or competition tonight. To a certain extent, all the groups coped with the assignment. And tonight's task was for you to understand that there are alternatives of the current situation, and certainly we live not in the best of the situations we can imagine, and those state functions can very well be delegated to the market or to the public-private partnerships. And for instance, if you really transfer a function to a market or a PPP arrangement, it does not mean that the state will have to leave from that area at all. Supervision, oversight, regulation, well, all those functions will stay with the federal authorities. But full centralization, as you see, is not the only option. Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the night.